Hello, everyone, and welcome to Friends of the Force, a Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Brad.
I'm your host, Sarah.
And today on the show, we are previewing Star Wars The High Republic Phase 2. We are back, baby. High Republic is back in our lives, and joining us for this preview episode, as we have had guests on every preview episode for High Republic, Eric Eilerson from the Living Force podcast and Utini. Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be back. My gosh, it seems just like yesterday, where the High Republic was a fake thing. We didn't know about it. We were happy with our regular novels. We were being fed, but that was an appetizer to the greatness that was Phase 1. You obviously, like you all, absolutely adore the High Republic. Absolutely obsessed with it. Definitely gonna get a tattoo of it someday, and so stoked to be hanging out with you guys to talk about Phase 2, which is finally here. That's right, folks. Even though there's no High Republic show or official announcement, it's coming. It really is. We promise.
And that is why we're filming. See, now I'm on the YouTube intro thing. That is why we're recording a podcast about a preview of this phase, because, like, oh my God, it's happening.
Yeah.
Like right now.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
And the people are going to be able to buy the books in the stores soon.
Yes.
We were
as
like,
you should.
we were like planning out our schedule for Andor. I'm like, holy crap! Path of Deceit comes out in 2 weeks. We got to read it. Yeah, that was a wake up.
Can you imagine if they still made Star Wars movies? Like, how busy would we be? Thank God they just don't do that anymore.
They really thought of us, the fans who make podcasts. You know,
We're
like
so blessed.
they really said, I don't know if we should make another one of these. They've got a lot going on in the content machine already, you know?
Just too much.
Yeah. Synergy machine is too activated nowadays. Eric,
that's it.
At the time of this recording, it has been 939 days since the last episode of Friends of the Force that you were on.
Oh my God.
That's too long.
God.
February 26th.
I was on that episode.
February 26th, 2020. 2 days after Project Luminous became the High Republic. Holy crap, this is pre-pandemic days. It's been way too damn long.
COVID happened, guys.
But many Michigan over Michigan State victories since that time, which I'd love to see.
That is true. Because the thing about us, Brad, is that we're bad at football. But one Michigan State victory over Michigan has happened because a freshman tipped an interception in the last part of the fourth quarter, and we won, and I screamed the loudest I ever have, and that was the only happiness I found during COVID, because that was during 2020. It clearly has apparently stuck with me very specifically.
I think I erased that from my memory. So thank you for that. But Eric,
you're welcome.
So we haven't gotten all of your unfiltered thoughts on the High Republic since then. So first off, for our listeners who don't know you or Living Force or Utini, tell us about yourself. And also, what have you thought of the High Republic now that you've actually had to read 3 full waves of it?
Not that you've had the opportunity to read, that you've had to read.
I've had to.
To be clear.
By
the
relentless machine of capitalism has forced itself upon me. So very basically, I am one of the co-founders, essentially, of Utini.com, a book website that's all about helping people read Star Wars books. And I'm one of the co-hosts of the Living Force podcast, our official podcast. We talk all about books every week. We also, like you lovely folks, have branched off to do shows about all the Disney Plus shows that has gotten a little harder to program, as you guys well know. But that's been kind of my thing. We're very book-centric. Obviously, as the High Republic took off, it kind of overwhelmed us in the best way. And we put out a ton of High Republic content, created a whole High Republic HQ landing page to help people read it, talk to a bunch of the authors. It's been amazing. So personally, I will say the High Republic, full stop, has been my favorite thing to come out of Star Wars publishing, probably in my reading life. I have adored basically every release. I think some have definitely been better than the others, but I think for the most part, if you're just looking at the tentpoles of Light of the Jedi, Rising Storm, Fallen Star, it's my favorite trilogy in written Star Wars. I think it is like quality beyond description. These characters, I think, have had some of the best character introductions since like freaking Darth Vader. Just the amount of care that has gone into the world building and creation of these worlds from all the mediums, from the books to the comics to the audio dramas. Like, they introduced me to audio dramas, really. I hadn't really listened to them before that, and now, like, this whole thing has kind of revolutionized me as a reader. So I'm so thankful for that. And I think it's been so nice to see it also happen to such good people. Like, I've become such a fan of the writers, of the creators of the High Republic. I mean, obviously thanks to like Twitter and things like that, but it's been so refreshing to see our book community, as you guys, like all of us that kind of do podcasts and stuff in this literary space. The High Republic seems to have kind of invigorated folks to just like connect in ways they never had before and see themselves in Star Wars in ways they never had before, and like become fans of a rock or a really sexy Daddy Gray person, or like, you know, there's just so much in it that is lovely, and it's been so weird to be away from it for like a few months. Ever really since like kind of Star Wars Celebration happened, where I saw you lovely folks. And
so many times, like coincidentally
times.
Like leaving Disneyland, and I was like, is that Eric sitting on a bench waiting for an
the
Uber?
leaving Disneyland meeting was such a highlight for me. So very iconic.
It was incredible.
All of us met you in person too, which is like great.
Ever.
Coincidental.
Sitting on a bench, all of us completely, as you should at Disneyland, completely spent of all possible energy.
Right.
Like, hey, I got an in-person meeting. That's amazing.
My friend.
It's a goose. My friends of the Force. I said it because I know the branding. You guys get a dime every time someone says it out loud.
That's true.
Wish.
Wait, you haven't been getting the dime too? Am I just?
Oh, Bradton.
I'm taking both the nickels.
It's tension now.
Oh man.
You know, we were talking about
the gender pay gap right there.
The brand. Well, I mean, also, but like the brand. I feel like. I feel like this really is saying a lot. It's saying a lot and not a lot. And
you're still paying for all those early episodes. That's what it is.
Oh boy. Yeah. Residuals.
But yeah. Yep. Like TLDR, I adore the High Republic. Like, there's an entire portion of my wall in my apartment that is dedicated to the High Republic books and posters. Like, it is a centerpiece of my life in such a great way. And it's amazing to realize that phase 2 is here. So yeah, that's it.
Here's the
I'm
question.
Stoked.
Here's the question.
Go.
And I don't want to real fan you. I don't want to real fan you, but like we're gonna, because I mean I know like okay, anyway. How many sets of the Phase 1 trilogies do you have?
Oh yes, excellent question, Sarah. So I have 3 copies of each adult novel.
Me too.
The regular, the Goldsboro, and the out of print. I also have the Target Rising Storm. And then I have for the YAs, they're not displayed up, so they all just look like a bunch of gold bindings to the same book. But every alternate cover, like Out of the Shadows, had a Walmart and a Target. I got all those.
Mm-hmm.
So too many, I would say, but also they look pretty.
Right. How can you say no?
Though. I mean, I'm actually, all you audio listeners won't be able to see this, but I'm currently wearing my Light of the Jedi
socks. The socks. I gotta say, as a woman just over 5 feet, those socks don't fit me at all.
Oh my god!
I'm so sad about it, but it's okay. I still have them. But yeah. No, I also have 3 copies of each of the books in the first phase. So like, it's just a thing. I feel like among the High Republic people, you know.
Yeah, they're so. The art is so good, and it's all we have. Like, we have the comics, which are so great, but like, I think the fact that there's no yet #Acolyte on screen High Republic at this point,
right?
Like, anytime we get new art, we're like, savor it, because this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Right. You know, there's just such a magical thing about books, and you're like, oh my god, a thing that's tangible, give it to me. And again, as we were talking off air, I was like, I'm so frugal, and here I am like, yes, I've spent $50 on or $150 on 3 books, and then there's $250 for another version of the 3 books.
The most insane part of that is that so folks, through Utini and the Living Force, I'm able to get advanced copies of the books, and every single one of these High Republic books I read digitally. Like, I read it as so I haven't even read any of the physical books I've bought. Like, they just sit on my shelf.
Oh,
they're just so beautiful.
They're just so chills. So
it's
sad.
It's a specific kind of insanity. Yeah, people always say, you know, our checks are in the mail from Disney, right? It could not be more the opposite, where we are sending them far too much money.
Right. Right. That's how I feel.
Praising us.
That's how I feel about flying cross country to like, after being invited to attend the Andor launch event, like,
That's so
like,
cool.
oh my
That
gosh,
episode was so
they're
good, guys.
oh, thank you.
God.
But like,
I listened to it at the gym. It made me so happy.
But
Man,
like, we flew cross country.
We're
People are like,
inspiring powerlifters out there every single day with their episodes. I'd love to hear it. Love to hear it.
Friends of the Gains, you know what I mean?
I really don't have a follow up for that at all. I was just about to say, like, do you want me to show you my credit card bill? Because if Disney wants to pay me for my trip, I'll take
It's
that.
high. It's very high.
Very high. Yeah. So anyway, the capitalism synergy machine hard at work. Thrilled to be a part of it. We love books, love stories. And yeah, High Republic, yay!
Yeah, the High Republic indeed. I echo what you said, Eric. It feels so weird that it's been so long without it. And I think like as we started to plan this episode and realize like, oh shit, we got to read these books because we're recording about them very soon, along with Andor happening and like, all the things that we want to do. I was like, holy crap, that's crazy. Like we were all together at Celebration. Like we got to be in the panel, like first time High Republic fans were together in person since the launch event on February 24th, 2020. God, which that was a great night on Star Wars Twitter. Like people just getting updates and finding out what this was all about, and then here we are sharing it together in person for the next phase. So if some of you out there listening to this episode and you haven't read the High Republic yet, we are previewing Phase 2. So there is Phase 1. Phase 2 takes place 150 years before Phase 1. In a way, you could kind of jump into Phase 2 because they are a set of fresh stories, technically speaking, chronologically. However, I would advise definitely like going back and reading at least some of the core adult books to start if you want to dive into Phase 2 with some context. Of course, we're following traditional Star Wars fashion, like, middle trilogy, pre-trilogy, and then sequel trilogy. Phase 3, I'm imagining we'll jump to...
Oh my God, are there going to be High Republic prequel kids? That like jump into just this Phase 2 and be like, that's my High Republic. That's my High Republic is Phase 2.
That's my High Republic. You know what?
Prequel kids are great.
I hope so. I hope so.
We are prequel kids.
All of us, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, that would be... What was your first Star Wars book? Convergence by Zoraida Cordova.
Awesome.
Yes.
Anybody whose first Star Wars book is by Zoraida Cordova is automatically a winner in my book. The taste jumped out.
You're a winner, and you're probably a little horny. And that's okay. That's just fine.
True. Crash of Fate. Everybody read that book. Angst.
Waterfall.
Yes. Kissing.
Waterfall.
Yes. Waterfalls. Indeed. Many innuendos there. But yes, so we are talking about Phase 2. We have so many titles. There's so many titles. Okay, so Wave 1, we have Path of Deceit by Tessa Gratton and Justina Ireland. That's out on October 4th, so 1 week from today's episode, which is crazy to say. Quest for the Hidden City by George Mann on November 1st. Convergence by Zoraida Cordova on November 22nd. And The Battle of Jedha by George Mann, which is an audio original drama in January with a script in February. That's Wave 1. Wave 2, 2023, Cataclysm by Lydia Kang. That's the adult novel. Quest for Planet X by Tessa Gratton. That's middle grade. And Path of Vengeance by Kevin Scott. That's the YA book that closes out Phase 2 entirely. So Phase 2 is only 2 waves, which we'll talk about. Comics. We have The Blade by Charles Soule. High Republic by Kevin Scott continues. The High Republic Adventures by Daniel Jose Older continue. The High Republic Adventures Nameless Terror by George Mann, which is in December. And Quest for the Jedi by Claudia Gray, which is her first time, I believe, writing Star Wars comics. That has just been delayed a couple of months, so that will be out in 2023, sometime in the springtime. And lastly, 2 reference books. We got The Art of the Star Wars High Republic by Kristen Baver. High Republic Chronicles of the Jedi by Cole Horton from Inside Editions. And Star Wars Insider, the magazine, is not only getting Starlight Stories, which compiles all of the stories from Phase 1, original short fiction in Insider. The first official Phase 2 release is Tales of Enlightenment, New Prospects by George Mann, which actually just dropped in the latest issue of Star Wars Insider. So if you subscribe to that magazine, you actually technically can start Phase 2 early. You can start it whenever you pick up a copy of that. I actually subscribe to that. I haven't read it yet, but hopefully soon.
Wow. Really didn't prepare for the episode, did you, Brad?
No, I
Just
didn't.
kidding. I'm the one who's read the least
Picked it
amount
up.
here.
I subscribed to Insider for the first time when they started doing the Starlight stories, and then I realized I was paying so much money for really 6 pages of content a month, because I mean, everyone puts in so much work into Star Wars Insider. It's an amazing product. If you love it, I love that. It was, as we've previously said, I am very dumb with finances on books and Lego and Funko. This was apparently my bridge too far. I'm like, I can't pay this magazine every single month for 6 pages of a short story. Like, I'll get them when they come out. So we're all on the same page there.
And that's why I want Starlight Stories, but it got, I think, pushed back a couple months, and I'm like, guys, I want to catch up.
Someday.
One day. It's okay. It's okay. I'll be there when they release it. That's for sure.
Maybe they'll release them during a Fortnite event. That'd be fun. What if they just like start doing Starlight Story in the sky on Fortnite?
Wow,
that could be good.
You're really connecting it to the last time period you were on this podcast during the Rise of Skywalker days and the Fortnite connections unexpectedly.
Exactly what I did.
I could cry. I could cry.
Deep.
Oh my god, that really like triggered a memory that I had put deep far away. I didn't need to know that again.
The Nile speak. Anyway.
So phase two looks pretty good. Only 2 waves, like we said. A lot of good stories. Like, obviously the elephant in the room, but the best elephant in the room is the new authors that we're bringing on for phase 2 that are kicking things off. So that's exciting. How are you guys feeling about like phase 2 and like all of the titles that are announced so far? The fact that it's only like two waves of books versus the 3 that we've gotten before, like kind of what's going through your minds?
Wow, that was like a really big open-ended question.
I know.
You really
good
just
thing we
like
host a podcast and we're not limited to
that.
workouts.
Almost like what you do. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So and here is me stepping up on the step stool. Hello, everybody.
She is on a
am
step stool for our audio listeners.
I say, yeah, you are close to 5 feet. You mentioned that earlier. So
to be
that makes
clear,
sense.
I do have a foot on a step stool right now. I use a step stool at my desk
She's
chair.
not
So,
Amazing.
no, I am really excited about this phase, not only because of the blue logo. It's so schmancy. I am obsessed. But also just because I love the fact that we are getting new authors in the space and that we are getting new themes that are going to be told with these stories that take place in a different time. You know, we're getting to explore, and I know that's kind of the theme of the phase, and that's cool. A new era and a new time that's going to give us context for what we've already seen, and like that's what Star Wars is all about. If not like doing something later that gives you context to the thing before, and you're like, wow, it's all one big story, incredible. And I'm just really excited. I mean, the cheers that came out of my mouth when when Zoraida was announced to be writing the adult novel were real. And I'm just so thrilled to read everybody's take on this world that's been created, and how it kind of builds on what our story architects from phase 1 have done. And also these books have gorgeous covers. I approve. Bring on the romance. Let everybody kiss. And yeah, I'm stopped talking now. Off the step stool. I'm passing the step stool to you, Eric.
Gosh, so good. Oh my god, it's here. The step stool. Yeah. Yes to all of that. I think that I'm so excited for these new writers, because I think the High Republic has been all about bringing new characters into Star Wars in such a beautiful way. So why not thematically do the same thing with the creators?
Right.
I think that's so fun. That being said, it is kind of a cheat because, like you said, Zoraida has written in Star Wars before. Huge fan of Crash of Fate, one of the, kind of unsung heroes of the, I guess, a couple of years ago by this point. But it is that book where you're like, hey, you read Crash of Fate?
I think.
My gosh, yeah, because it was right around Galaxy's Edge. And anytime you mention that book to someone, they're like, oh my god, that was so good. And it's, like I've had like Dark Disciple, Rebel Rising, like those books that everyone actually loves, but you don't talk about as much. Which is super exciting. And then, of course, for me personally, George Mann is one of my favorite people in Star Wars anything. One of the kindest souls in the world. And I've loved the little bits he's been able to do, like with Myths and Fables and Dark Legends and the Life Day Treasury he did with Cav. like he puts so much heart into so much of what he does. And I'm very excited for him to be brought on board. I haven't read Tessa before, but it's again so exciting to bring her on to work with Justina too, a co-written book we haven't quite seen before. So it's a lot of untread ground, which I think is exciting. I will be honest that I'm a little like I'm gonna miss the architects a little bit on the full books. Like
Right.
obviously they're not
Yeah.
going anywhere. Like they're still all writing all the comics we listed as basically all the other ones like Charles Soule, Cavan, Claudia Gray, DJO. They're still around doing what they love. The Blade is probably one of my most anticipated projects of all.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
there is going to be a moment of like, okay, I want more full length novels from these folks, but they are doing what they want to do, what they want to create.
Mhm.
So I'm very excited for it, and I hope that the exploration is so dived into while also still being as impactful as phase one, which I think is also like a weird thing to say. You know, I want to see the new planets, I want to see building new technologies, but I also want just the emotionally gripping narratives of phase one. Like, I mean, these characters I met on page one had me in a chokehold by page 150, you know, and we
Right.
lost people and we had them go
I'm
through trial.
sad about it.
Like, I'm sad about it. Like, Loden Greatstorm is one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. That's insane. But like, they were written so well, and I have no doubt these writers wouldn't be brought on if they didn't have exactly that kind of passion and talent for it. So I'm just excited to see what this new wave does, and again, to be introduced to our new favorites to
Right.
go right back along. Like, it's just so exciting to have that possibility.
That's the best
Yeah.
part of like Star Wars fiction is like anytime a new author is brought in, we're like, yes, somebody else to love, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's
'Cause
it's
they're
just
good people.
a wealth of delightful, wonderful people whose stories are brilliantly drawn.
Yeah, 100%.
I think the most fascinating thing about phase two is the fact that we're going back in time, because that was unexpected. I know when they first announced it, we were very
Yes.
confused. Like, oh, is it 150 years before Phantom Menace, or is it actually from phase one? And it is from phase one, which is really about 382 years before the Battle of Yavin, if that's what we're going by now, according to Andor, which canonized BBY.
Canonized.
Canon,
I
baby.
don't know how
Star
I feel
Killer
about that.
event. Get out of here.
You know
Sorry.
what? I have some feelings about that, but this is not the podcast for it. It's fine.
No, it's not. That's a whole nother 3-hour
Mini Andor
episode.
Candor.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I totally forgot about this on our episodes 1 through 3 of Andor Candor. It's fine. We'll bring it up next time.
Okay, so why are we going back in time? And when you think about phase
Right.
one, phase one kind of left us with so many questions rather than answers, which I love.
Oh,
Right? Like, I don't think
right.
I'm not the type of Star Wars fan that needs answers for everything. I just want like a good story and good characters, which Eric, you spoke to, is like we came away from phase one like having our favorites, having the characters that we're gonna stand. So it's like, okay, now that we're in new ground, clearly like phase two is telling a story to give us information on how our heroes can save themselves and defeat the threat of the leveler. Like that, this is going to be, I think
Yeah.
phase two is essentially like the origin story of the leveler and like that sort of nameless
Mm.
beast, right? Like we think of a story like The Nameless Terror by George Mann. Like obviously the word nameless keeps popping up quite a bit. And we know the nameless are the leveler because they were explicitly named the Nameless in Trail of Shadows. Also the Shrika-Rai and the Eaters of the Forest, which is like, you know, the most terrifying
Ooh.
things you could think of.
Yeah.
So
It's
like
all scary.
yeah, very terrifying. Everybody read Trail of Shadows because it's amazing. But like phase two, like while being an origin story and also like a sort of gathering of information to help our heroes, like how do the authors also balance that with character and like with making us care about these people who we might not necessarily see in phase three, right? Because if phase three is jumping
Right.
back to present day, we're gonna leave the phase two characters behind. Do they all die? Is this also a bloodbath of catastrophic proportions?
Right.
Is there a Starlight Beacon event?
Like, and that's the interesting question of like, you know, I was talking to a friend about Andor actually this week about stakes in Star Wars, because so often we tie stakes to death, right? That's the only thing in Star Wars. Like, well, if I know they live, why do I care? Which is like such a common thing, which is hilarious because as a kid, you knew Luke Skywalker wasn't going to die, but you loved the original trilogy. Like, that didn't matter.
Right.
But now as
yeah.
adults, somehow we're like, well, does Obi-Wan matter because he's going to live and Darth Vader's going to live? Like, that's not the point. But that being said, for characters we may never see again, that is interesting to say, like, are they going to go through these things that are physically dangerous or emotionally dangerous? And how are they going to link back? Because it's no spoiler to say, because this was revealed at Star Wars Celebration and concept art and things like that. One of the main characters in the first book, Path of Deceit, is Marta Rowe, who is a direct ancestor of Markion Rowe. The
Hit
big
us with the
bad.
Markion. Oof.
Oh, I'm Team
I don't know
Markion.
if I
Sorry.
agree.
We're
No.
ending the episode now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We have to leave. This is
Oof.
Sorry,
A big,
he's
big rare L
March-
from Eric Eilerson here.
Oh my gosh, fine.
You heard it here, you heard it here first.
Rowe, he can be a shush. All right, so Marta is a clear ancestor of him. So, like, how will that turn into, and how do the authors balance the idea that we just want revelations about Phase 1 while also telling a full story? Because as I'm reading
Right.
Marta, I don't want to be thinking, cool, but when does she get the purple rod? Like, did she find the thing? Like, I don't want to be thinking about other books while I'm supposed to be invested in the character's story. And I think that'll be an interesting balance throughout this as well, as it was with the prequels, right? The second we met Anakin, people, like, you had to care about Anakin and Padme's relationship growing, even though you knew it was destined to fail. So, like, that was George's plan. And I think, like you said, Brett, what's more Star Wars than this initiative of trilogies?
Right, yeah. I have to say one quick thing. You said that, like, you know, the idea of there's no stakes if we know where it ends. And I couldn't agree more with you about the fact that, like, there are still stakes. And I just got to shout out Tony Gilroy, our man, our Lord and Savior, Tony Gilroy.
You make good Star Wars, Tony!
one of the press
we know he's
tickets.
listening. Thank you, Tony.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Thank you,
Patron of the show, Tony Gilroy. I'm kidding, for legal reasons. But Tony Gilroy said, like, what was that? He was like, you know, we all die some days, so in a way, we're all living in our prequel. Which, like, is not the best quote I've ever heard, like, in my life.
And also
Sarah,
being like, oh yeah, we're gonna end Andor when he walks into the station. Like, being like, no, here's how the series ends. Why are we kidding around with this? Like, that's not like, just what a legend.
You're just laying it all out there.
Honestly,
Yeah.
that was so great. I'll never forget it. It's so good.
Sarah, what are you thinking of Phase 2, the time jump backwards? Like, how is that going to influence Phase 3? And do you think the phase will be successful in, like, balancing those two things of, like, you know, exposition for our heroes in Phase 3, as well as, like, making us care about the characters too?
Yes. No, like, I truly think so, because of the authors that they've gotten. You know, we're talking about stakes, life and death or otherwise. And let's think about these authors for a second, you know?
Yeah.
You talked to Eric about how much heart George Mann brings to his stories and how much you enjoy his work. Like, Zoraida loves a good romance, you know. Zoraida is really all about that. And so are the writing duo of Tessa and Justina. I think I saw a Twitter thread from Justina where they were talking about how one of them brings the kisses and the other one brings the death, you know, and like, and I don't recall who is who. Wow. Tessa might have been the kisses and Justina might have been the death. That would track. But I can't say that 100%.
Justina might do a little death now.
Maybe. Go read Rest in the Root by Justina Ireland, out now, where her books are sold. I will not stop plugging that one, but it's really good. But yeah, no, I feel like they're going to balance the story well. And I think Lydia Kang is the person that actually maybe is the one we have the least knowledge about in the Star Wars universe, because her book is coming in Wave 2. And also, I know the least about her writing.
She had a certain point of view story, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, right-hand man.
Lydia Kang, yes. Yeah, the droid that gives Luke hand. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, underrated story of that anthology, by the way. It's a great one. It's a great one.
Yeah, but I feel like you know, just of what I've personally read from these authors, I've read the least from Lydia, and I think that the fact that she's doing the Wave 2 big adult novel, which is the final one of that phase, I think it's going to be really interesting. And while we're kind of here on this thought, the 2 wave thing I think is really interesting. I don't know how it's going to go. I feel like the fact that these authors, you know, Zoraida and Tessa and Justina, kind of, we know that they enjoy romantic stories or balancing those sort of relationships in their fiction. will definitely bring the emotional punches that we're hoping to see. And I have no doubt that, you know, these people can also build great worlds as well, because not only do they have the opportunity to build new worlds, but they're also, you know, on the shoulders of people who have already done a lot of the work to kind of set up where the High Republic, you know, is going and what it feels like. So they just get to expand upon that. It's just exciting.
And I'm looking at this, Brad. You wrote out the titles in our outline here, and I've never actually looked at the titles together, but I never realized how mirrored the waves are.
You haven't?
So can
Oh
we
my
say
gosh.
the adult novels, right? Convergence, Cataclysm. The
Yep.
YA, Path of Deceit, Path of Vengeance. The
Yeah.
middle grade, Quest for the Hidden City, Quest for
Quest
Planet
for
X.
Planet X.
Like they're
I can't
I'm
believe you
just
didn't
now
realize that
seeing
till just
this.
now.
live on Maine. This is maybe. I mean, because they couldn't do that with obviously the first one because it's a trilogy, right? They could have done a little bit, but this is directly so mirrored,
Yeah.
which again shows that
Interesting.
they clearly have a plan because they're
Mhm.
almost inverses of each other as far as definitions go.
Right.
Like, I mean, convergence, coming together, cataclysm, destruction, deceit,
Yeah.
vengeance. Is it because of the deceit that was in the other path?
Yes.
Like,
I'm going to go ahead and say yes.
Gosh.
Quest for
There's
the
a lot
Hidden
of fun. There's a lot of
City,
fun
Quest for
possibilities.
Planet X. You know, Planet X is
Yeah.
unnamed.
Yeah.
Hidden City is mysterious, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it is
Lots
all there. I
of-
think Sarah and I recognized that naming convention. We were like,
Oh my
damn,
goodness.
oh damn, okay,
It's
cool.
So
like-
cool.
I'm like
yeah,
delightfully surprised that I get to watch you experience this
That
revelation in
was
real
just
time.
so fun.
very fun. Yeah.
But I also do want to say, Brett, to your other question real quick about, you know, how do we feel about it being two waves? I think I would say I love the 3-wave structure. I love the trilogy structure. But I do think that phase one ended on such an emotional cliffhanger of now what? I do enjoy that we're going to get a 2 waves of prequel, but then we are going to jump back into that story. Because it seems like based on this mirroring thing, based on this convention, they're very intentionally telling an entire story. But they're not making us wait as long to get back to the characters we just lost out on, which I think is actually smart marketing, but also for me emotionally, I want to see Elzar again. I want to see Avar. I want to see Bell. Like, I want to
see Stone Geos.
Where is Buryaga?
where is Buryaga? Put it.
Where is
Oh my
he?
god, make it like the next sticker book. Where is Buryaga? It's just Bell going around.
It's just a bunch of pages of empty space.
Yeah. Is
One
he on
floating
Coruscant?
gear.
No. Is he on Tatooine? We couldn't find him. Like, anyway, I think that I'm more. Oh my god, Sarah is just melting down completely.
Sarah really misses Buryaga so badly. She is holding her Funko Pop of Tarful right now. She has a soft spot for Wookiees.
Be like, it hurts, man. I don't need to be thinking about that. Like, Stellan was hard enough, and then like I blocked out Buryaga from my mind because I was like, I literally can't handle this. And now you've brought it up, and like, where's Buryaga? He's not there. Don't do that to me, Eric.
Well, Sarah, what's worse than one Rastar? 2 Rathars.
Oh no. Listen, there is like 0 chance in hell that they kill Buryaga. Like, if I didn't see a body, I didn't see a body. And also, like, if Buryaga lives, ladies and gentlemen, that means he can appear in the Acolyte. That's all I'm saying. Give us a live action Buryaga. Anything is possible.
Anything's possible.
We all better get on the live stream with me, like, if that happens, because I'm gonna lose my shit.
My
dude,
God.
when Chrysanthemum showed up, I was like, I love him.
Leslie Headland's like, I've been reading this High Republic. This Buryaga character, can you make sure he doesn't die so I can keep him in my show?
That's who our hero from Squid Game is playing. He's playing Buryaga.
Oh my
He's gonna come in like really hot.
See, I just
cool
feel
Buryaga.
like I just feel like maybe you said like Leslie Headland saying that. Like, I feel like maybe she gets to do a little bit of the Ryan Johnson, you know, here's the napkin bombing, you know, in Bloodline.
Oh my god, the napkin bombing.
Do you ever just want to cry? Yes. Yeah. So maybe, like, who knows? Stan Buryaga.
While we're here, by the way, can we like quickly just like, not that this is like a, this is a phase 2 preview, but like considering recent news, can we like have a hot second here where we talk about the casting of the Acolyte and like also just the fact that like the High Republic is, so the Acolyte is a show that is going to take place 50 years before Phantom Menace. It's at the tail end of the High Republic. I think it is so cool that we've really never seen Star Wars books sort of emerge into the television scene. I mean, we've seen bits of it like with Cobb Vanth, and hopefully in the future we'll get like a Dr. Aphra. We did see again like Black Chrysanthemum from comic to screen.
I love him.
Love him so much.
So
and
good.
his electric knuckles.
And his powerful thighs.
Oh yeah, most importantly.
Arsa Flip knows all about them.
Yeah.
But also like we're also getting the Young Jedi Adventures too, which is a show that's meant for like 3 and 4-year-olds, but is also going to be
but much like Bluey will be watched by everyone.
Right, watched and loved by everyone. We love, I think, what is his name? Nubs,
who is
the blue guy?
Yeah,
Pooba. Yes.
Nubs is a Pooba.
Yeah.
We stand.
That has that deadly weapon, a lightsaber.
Yes.
That is a sword that can cut anything in the universe.
Oh yeah. We're so
so like
excited.
we're getting 2 very different Star Wars High Republic related TV projects that exist for very different audiences. And so I think it'll be really exciting to see how the creators behind these shows adapt the written language and style and tone of the High Republic to visual mediums, and how they, speak to, like, as all good science fiction fantasy does, like speak to our current moment,
right,
for these different audiences.
Right. Well, and of course the Acolyte is like dark side themed as well. They've said is like the darker side, and of course because of the more mainstream Star Wars audience that the shows do go to. I mean, it's not like crazy pandering, but just for the world, they're probably going to name drop Sith. Like I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of Sith, because your layman person that's watched regular Star Wars assumes dark side Sith. They at least know what that is. And I also think that they've kind of hinted at that. And we have not seen Sith in the High Republic as of yet.
Mm-hmm.
And we have that whole, the Sith have been extinct for 1,000 years or whatever, or the Jedi at least didn't know, right? So I think that brings in such an era of interesting like storytelling possibilities of, were the Sith dormant during the whole High Republic? And will that then play differently to us as we go back and reread, knowing that based on the Acolyte, oh great, were these Sith Lords played by the most attractive people that have ever been in Star Wars? Were they actually in the background? Do they know what Starlight Beacon was? Like, were they just waiting? Are we seeing hot Plagueis? These are the answers that I want.
Oh man, I have considered hot young Palpatine played by Matt Smith in the Acolyte many a time because I want it.
Only if he has a niece. How's the dragon
Daddy Daemon Targaryen, let me tell you.
I just want to be clear that I don't subscribe to this. So if we have any listeners that don't subscribe to this, know that you have an ally on this podcast.
Hey, we're all about hand touching, right? All us Last Jedi stands love the hands. I've seen where Damon's hands rest on Rhaenyra's neck, and I'm like, you know what? I gotta get it.
You know what? Ship whatever you want. I do not care. I'm just saying I'm not a Game of Thrones person broadly.
Fair.
Totally to your heart's content is.
Listen, I can't resist Matt Smith. It's really hard.
Easy.
Doctor Who fans know it. But no, seriously, I mean,
we were there.
Hot Plagueis, I would support it. But I mean, Acolyte just added Manny Jacinto from Good Place.
That was inspired. Literally inspired. Like, oh my God.
Lee Jung-jae from Squid Game, who is the lead in Squid Game. Charlie Barnett, who is one of the co-leads of Russian Doll, which is a Leslie Headland project. So they're all joining Amanda Stenberg and Jodie Turner-Smith. So very, very big. Noteworthy too. I mean, so far these are all non-white leads. Like,
there's no white people. That's awesome.
That's really awesome. That is so
huge.
good. That's so progressive of Star Wars, and like I hope we continue to see like more casting like that. And like,
Yeah.
I mean, like we've seen that still, right? Like, I mean, Diego Luna and Pedro Pascal like headlining the two most popular shows, and
Oh my
you
God.
got Tamara
Tamara.
Morrison and Ming-Na headlining Book of Boba Fett, right? So like
Mhm.
it's all there, right? So that's important, but also just like the star power that the show is bringing. I
Yeah.
am
The Emmy
so
win
excited.
recently
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Like, I wonder if they got his price in his contract before he won a freaking Emmy.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
yeah, I'm sure Lucasfilm hopes so.
yeah, they
um,
do.
but like, if we're to assume, so phase 2 is 2 waves. That puts us
Yes.
sort of in the April time frame, right?
Mhm.
I am assuming an April launch of wave 2, phase 2, and then Celebration London will announce the phase 3 dates and announcements and all that
Yes.
sort of stuff. Phase
Yeah.
3 will kick off, and either it will coincide with the Acolyte, or the Acolyte will sort of come on the tail end of
Oh.
phase 3, leading into that,
Ooh.
right? So I'm
Ooh,
curious. Like we're really in like a High Republic sweet
Ooh.
spot this next year and a half.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
will say the dates right now for the second wave are April, May of next
Okay.
year. So, I mean, we've seen a lot of shifting with this first wave, both in the comics and the full length novels. So we'll see if it ends up staying there, but that is where it lives right now, at the very
Okay.
least.
Yeah, so that
That's
tracks,
interesting. Yeah.
like, hey, highlight
Yeah.
the current books that are out, talk with the authors. Also, hey guys, in London, here's a preview of the next, next phase.
Yeah.
Here's when
Which
it's
is,
dropping.
I think next door to Kevin Scott. I think he lives next door. I don't understand London, but I assume all English people live next door to each other. So very happy that Cav gets to go down the street.
yeah,
that
and
one.
George Mann too, right?
Yeah.
He's
Because
London based
they live
so,
next door to each other.
right?
They do, very
The
clearly.
neighbors, clearly.
They do. Although for those that don't obsessively follow Star Wars authors on Instagram and Twitter, George Mann and Kevin Scott do go to like writing retreats together, where they just both like meet, and it's the most wholesome and
Truly.
wonderful thing, because they just like watch horror movies at night together and then write stories during the day, and it just seems tremendous. And I'm so glad they're both on this project.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so
I
cool.
have a side question for you, Eric.
Do
Do
it.
you write?
Do it. Do I write?
Yeah.
I have written. I don't like I don't have like a WIP or anything like that, but I have
Okay.
written.
Because I'm like, I'm sitting here with my friends. We're like, oh man, I just want to be like George Mann and Kevin Scott, watching horror movies at
Right?
night, writing in the daytime. And it's like, yes, but I am not a capital C creative. I am a lowercase c creative.
God, I had so much idea. I have had so many ideas for like my great novel, and then I sit down and I'm like, oh, you have to write it?
You actually have to do it.
Oh
Yeah.
nah,
Right,
nah, man,
right.
that ain't it. I've always been like, if I have a friend that is writing that wants to like bounce ideas, yeah, absolutely. Like I'll be the Mike Seglain. I'll be like, you tell me, and I'll tell you if it works. Absolutely. Also, I gotta say, one of my Celebration memories I treasure very dearly. I was at the Lucasfilm Publishing panel, and I happened to be just like 3 seats down from Mike Seglain, and I had the whole time I was just thinking like, should I talk to him? That's weird. He's not on the panel, but like he means so much to me. He's really cultivated, but he's not like here as a guy. Oh God, he's standing up, and I didn't say anything. But it was that moment where like Mike Seglain,
Okay.
you're famous to me, but I don't know how to make that make sense.
That was us at Celebration with like James Waugh, who we saw like 3 or 4 times,
So
and we
many
never end up
times.
saying anything to him.
We
And we were, like,
straight up,
walking down the
walked
street.
next to him, like going to interview Mike Chen at where
We were
the
not
Disney-
following him.
one of
We
the
had a
Di-
clear
Yeah,
destination.
we were both like just happening to be on the same sidewalk for so long. We're like, should we say hi? Like we've
And
been
he, like,
walking
looked
for
back at
20
us at one
minutes
point,
next to
and we were
him.
like, oh, we could say something about the High Republic, but we're not gonna.
Yeah.
It's such a hard thing to do. But okay, well, just because you reminded me now, and then I'll stop talking about Celebration was just the best thing ever. I was like trying to see the authors. I got them all signed a thing, and then one day I was going to security, and I happened to go to security 2 people in front of Kevin Scott. So he was going to like regular security too. By the way, it wasn't like anything special. He was just like walking through with his assistant Sarah, who's also a lovely person. And so I just like waited. I'm like, hey. He's like, oh, hello. And then we just like hung out for like 10 minutes, and I was like, "Cool, I guess that's it." And then like people are just walking by in full cosplay. I'm like, "Do you know who this is?" Do you know what he's responsible for?
That's my favorite thing about authors. The pleasure of being a bookseller and like a reader and somebody who talks about books all the time is like, authors are just like regular, normal people, celebrities. And, you know, like a lot of them have day jobs that are not writing, and they create these stories that mean so much to us, but it's kind of a secret. You know, like it's kind of like a secret club. And it's so cool to meet authors who are so down to earth. You know, like it's one thing to like love a celebrity or, you know, stand someone and just love them, but they've got 50 million other people who, you know, love them in the same way that you do. And it's like a whole nother thing to like be able to go to an author event and there's 55 people there and you get to spend a minute talking to them because, you know, they're
so
excited. They're excited to hear about what you think of their story. I don't know. There's just something so magical about stories and about authors and about this world that we share.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Sarah. And like also to like accessibility, right? Like the ability for High Republic Twitter to like regularly interact with these authors and like
it's a privilege. It's very cool.
for podcasts to interview these authors and to get to talk to them and like really help to cultivate that community. The fact that like, you know, Daniel Jose Older is especially very active on Twitter, like with High Republic fans, and it always brings me so much joy. Same with Cavan too. Like Cavan retweets a lot of stuff and talks to a lot of people on there and gives great advice, and just like everybody's so down to earth. I think that's like part of like, besides like the story of the High Republic, it's the people. Most importantly, and I think that the panel at Celebration was like honestly like such a joy to even be in that room and like hear the excitement and to see the cosplayers and to see Christina Ariel on stage. Like, goddamn, like what a time.
Love her. Yeah. It is just such a moment of knowing that whenever the authors do tweet something, like they're answering questions about process or characters, because they created these characters. They love them more than we do. They're their children, you know?
Right.
And they're so excited that we get to do it because they do. You know, they're writing in a weirdly collaborative way. Like they have a Slack channel, which, oh my God, the amount of money I would pay to be in that Slack channel for a day. But like they had that one retreat, but for the most part, they are writing in a room, like in a more solitary way. And whereas thousands of us are just like, we love everything you're doing. Please tell us more about your process. Can you tell us about this character? What do you think about this? And rather than, I love all the main Star Wars people on the shows and the creators. Favreau doesn't need to quote tweet about his process. Like we're all going to watch that. We're all going to watch all the shows. We understand that. So there is a different level of intimacy, which if you're in it, as I hope all listeners, I hope you are or about to be in the High Republic world, it's so special because you really do feel like you are part of it as it happens. And whether you were at the cosplay meetup at Celebration, which is one of the most incredible things to see, or you're just watching on Twitter, or you're just waiting for release day like the rest of us, it's such a personal thing, which is why I think this phase 2 lead up has been so exciting and why we do want more people to be talking about it, because we're like, these are our friends are coming back and we're going to make new friends. Like it is very intimate. And which is also why I'm excited to go back to what we first started talking about, like to get to phase 2, to read it. Yes. But I'm still going to want to get back to Elzar and Avar and Bell because I do really care about these characters because we have been around since they were born, essentially.
Right.
We read their first, we were there. So it's really exciting.
Yeah. Anyway, I hope that if you've listened to 52 minutes of the podcast or however long we've been recording, that you're like a part of this community already. But like, if not, now's the time, because the greatest thing that I think that the High Republic could have done is make phase 2 independent from phase 1. There was a point in time where I was reading the High Republic. I had started the Outlander series. I had started the Expanse series. Those are each 9 books so far.
Crazy.
And I said to myself, oh my gosh, I can't start anymore. And then I realized that I was in the middle of another like 9 book series that all came out in a single calendar year. And I was like, holy shit. I am not a casual fan about this. I'm a very capital S serious fan about this. And I actually keep up with all this. But like, how is anybody who is a casual fan going to keep up with it? And the comics, because Brad wanted me to keep up with the comics, which was a good choice. But like, man, it's tough. Comics are tough for me.
It's hard. It is actually hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, here's 30 pages of story, and you wait a month for the next one, which I totally understand why that is the case. But like, oh my gosh, just give it to me in the bind up, please. But like, um, I think the fact that if readers haven't read all of phase one, or if they haven't read any of phase one, but if either the authors or the kind of stories that they're telling or the themes that are going to be talked about in phase two interest somebody, that they can jump right in. And I hope that that's a message that's communicated through marketing and on the books and from us as capital I insiders who are like very serious about this, that anybody can really jump in at any time and start here if they really want to. Or if phase one didn't work out for them, they can give it another go. And hopefully find something to love here. So I think that's what's most interesting kind of about phase two. And I'm excited for the new doors it will open for new fans, the prequel kids,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because I think the thing about High Republic fans as a whole, we're not interested in talking about what didn't work about this, or what did you not like about it, or what did you do, or what is better than what? How do you rank the books as a whole? We're just like, hey, friend, read this book. Isn't it rad? And like, that's the vibe essentially. And like, there are so many people, again, if you guys are listening to this, you obviously trust Brad and Sarah at this point. Like, you guys are like, hey, listen, you have chosen your path of deceit or your path of vengeance, whichever it may be.
The ultimate two options.
But like, that's why I think that as podcasters, in a time where we're getting an event like this, like, it is nice to be like, hey guys, we are far too weirdly obsessive, like you're saying, about this stuff. So we'll try to help you as much as we can. Here's the book you read. The next one, do this. The next one, do this. And it should never be a stressful thing, which I think this does teeter right on the edge of. Right. It should be an exciting thing. And I think that's hopefully, as you all are listening, we're making that easier and making that clearer by our excitement. I hope that you're being more excited rather than intimidated.
Yeah.
And I know that like sometimes I'm giggling because this applies directly to me. When you're so enthusiastic about something to someone you love and you're like, you have to do this. And that loved one in your life is like, I love you, but for the love of God, please shut up. I do not want to hear you recommend this thing to me one more time. So I hope that we can tread the line of like genuine excitement, which I know we all feel, and kind encouragement that is not taken as like a please shut up, my dearest friend. I get very enthusiastic about things. This has happened to me more than once. Do I hold some bitterness from something that happened in 2016? Yes, it's fine.
Was it Rogue One?
No, it was Hamilton. It's fine.
That's fair. Which is also very good. Wait, hold on. I said that wrong. Hamilton's the GOAT. I love it. Let's be clear. Sorry, I feel like I said that like I was one of those people. Hamilton's amazing. I understand though. I was
like really into it before it was popular. That's such a cliche thing to say, and everyone in my life was like, Sarah, I am begging you. And then I had somebody a year later who was like, oh my God, I love it. And I was like, you told me to shut up once about it. I will never forget it. So if that
you threw away your shot. You threw away your shot. Okay.
Right. But yeah, anyway, I hope we're not doing that to you at the High Republic, because you can start fresh in phase two. And if you don't want to think about phase one for even a second, you really don't have to, like that. Yeah. That's kind of the thing about it, is you don't have to walk in with 9 books worth of knowledge, which is, I think, ideal. Otherwise we would be like on our 10th book, it all connects and you better have the spreadsheets out or else.
Well, it's interesting too, but like what sort of machete order is going to spring from the High Republic, right? We can tell people, hey, you can jump in the Star Wars OT or prequels. Either way works. It's totally up to you. Hell, you could jump in the sequel trilogy if you wanted to and go back, right? There's all sorts of orders to go through these things. And I think it's probably smart on Lucasfilm's half to on their behalf to go back in time and give people time to both catch up on wave 1 and not have to worry about like, oh, I have to read like wave 1 and wave 2, or you can do both simultaneously and then like be ready for phase 3 like next year, right? So there's a lot of time to go through this.
Yeah, I will do a small it's the only time I'm going to do it. I'll do a small plug for a thing that I wrote over at Utini. We have a High Republic reading order But then we also did a High Republic reading guide that went through all of phase 1 and said, here's the required reading for this book that like you will be confused. And then we also said, but here's the recommended reading that if you want the full story, you should read this. Which is one of the things I was very passionate about doing, because I think that was most of the conversations that I've been having with friends is like, okay, but really, do I have to read this? And sometimes the answer is no. Like you really don't. But do you want to know who Ram Jamaram is when he shows up on the page?
You do.
You do. So you should read this. And I think that's what the High Republic community is. There is no shortage of people who are here to help you. If you want, like, send those Twitter DMs. Like, go out like, hey, I want to read this book. What do you recommend? Because sometimes you're going to have more time than others. Sometimes you're going to not want to read certain types of books, or you're going to read only comics. Like, all that is fine. But you do have to seek out some people that have read it. And that's kind of what we're hoping to do. But again, after phase 2, who knows? Because we haven't read them yet. So we'll find out.
I feel like we should take a little bit of time to, like, for lack of a better word, we don't have any excerpts to talk about today. I think in the past we've had excerpts that we can.
Which is wild.
Right.
Which is, yes. Like, Light of the Jedi had its first 7 chapters, which is the biggest flex I've ever seen in my entire life. To be like, read the first 7 chapters of the book. You're going to love it. And they just released that. But nothing for phase 2.
I remember reading that first chapter and I was like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, everybody's
the pilot of the
dead?
Ship. She's clearly going to be a main character for the whole initiative. That's very fun.
Psych. But I feel like we should. I just feel like we should talk a little about what these books are about. And
the first 3 releases you're talking.
Books? Yeah. Well, we don't have. I don't know if we have a full synopsis for Convergence, but all 3 of us have copies of Path of Deceit in Quest for the Hidden City in front of us, and I think it might be just helpful for our listeners who maybe, if they haven't sought out these synopses, to kind of go through them and just like talk about what excites us about them.
Hey,
is that okay?
There's 3 of us, 3 books. Why don't we just kind of like popcorn it throughout? Yeah.
Do we have the Convergence one?
No,
I
do
have
have
a lovely one in the outline.
I will do Convergence because I just pulled it right off of Penguin Random House's website. Yeah, so you guys kick it off
Path
with
of Deceit, if that's okay.
Cool. Yeah,
do it.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Okay, Centuries. Okay, well, actually, I'm not gonna. We all know it's the High Republic because we've been doing this for an hour. Okay, it is a time and
but you have to do it in
excitement.
the Tom Kane voice.
I don't have a Tom Kane voice. I have a Sarah Haas voice. Centuries before the Clone Wars or the Empire, in the early days of the High Republic, it was an age of great exploration in a galaxy far, far away.
I love that.
No notes. 10 out of 10.
Thank you.
Yep.
It is a time of excitement and discovery. Daring pilots chart new routes through hyperspace. Pathfinder teams of the frontier, or actually, I forgot a word there, so we're going to do that sentence again. It's fine. Pathfinder teams travel the frontier, recruiting new worlds to join the Republic, and the Jedi Order expands its protection to the Outer Rim. But not everyone welcomes the Jedi. On the planet Dalna, you may have heard of it, a group called the Path of the Open Hand preaches that the Force should not be used by anyone and views the Jedi as abusers of the will of the Force. One such believer is Marta Rowe, a young Everini woman who dreams of leaving Dalna to spread the word of the Path throughout the galaxy. When she finds herself drawn to a charming visitor in her town, she is horrified to discover that he is a Jedi. But Padawan, come on, guys. Okay. But Padawan,
Padme's in this book?
Right. Seems so kind and eager to learn more about the Path that she hopes to convince him of the rightness of their ways. What Marta doesn't realize is that the leader of the Path, a charismatic woman known only as the Mother, has an agenda of her own, and it is one that can never coexist peacefully with the Jedi. To follow her faith, Marta may have to choose to become her new friend's worst enemy.
Wow. Wow.
Enemies to... I don't know. What's
enemies to lovers to
Hold
enemies?
Oh, spicy.
Maybe.
Okay, so when you read that synopsis, like, what vibes are you getting from that? What are you thinking about? Like, what's sticking out to you? How does it feel different than phase 1?
For me, I'm fascinated because it seems very intimate, and not just like in the romantic sense, but literally a small scale. Based on that, I see Marta and I see this, and I see Kevmo, and I'm like, okay, this is a probably meet cute, different sides of the world, but we're gonna maybe fall in love anyway. and there's also a dastardly plan in the background. Whereas phase 1 seemed like the plans were kind of in the foreground. And I think that's an interesting shift. And it makes me think this book is going to be more so about Marta Rose visions and view of the Force, which again, my phase 1 brain is like, is this book basically going to tell us why Marcion, I know where I am, hates the Jedi so much? Is it because of what Marta experiences with Kevmo? And I'm like, is that where this is going? That's where my brain goes.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Eric, because we know from phase 1 that Marcion's family has a deep-rooted hate of the Jedi going back many generations. We also know from like books like A Test of Courage and Test of Courage and the two Justina books.
Race to Crash Point Tower. No. Out of the Shadows.
No.
There's A Test of Courage.
Mission to Disaster.
Oh, thank God.
Thank you,
on
Eric.
my shelf. Mission to Disaster.
It's on mine too, and yet.
Mission to Disaster and Test of Courage both have the character of Honesty Weft prominently featured, who is Dalnan.
We stand. I love Honesty Weft so much, you guys.
Honesty Weft, right? One of the great names too.
Right.
Truly,
and we kept getting all of these hints about this great betrayal that happened between the Jedi and the Dalnans, right? And so we kept wondering, like, what is that? Are we going to explore that? Wrongly so, Sarah said, "Oh, we won't explore that. Path of Deceit, Justina's book won't be about."
Hey guys, whoa! To be super clear about my position here, you were like, "This book, phase 2 there's gonna be Dalna. Dalna's gonna be the main player," and I was like, "I don't know if I'm ready to say that, so I'm gonna take the opposite." And then it got announced like months earlier than I thought it was actually going to get announced. And I was like, wait a second. I didn't even get the opportunity to decide whether or not I wanted to keep that bet or not. Like, because you said, okay, we're going to be at the seated celebration and you can decide whether you want to play the bet or not. And I didn't even get that opportunity.
It was announced
beforehand. It was so sad for me.
I gotta say, Justina, and I was like Charles Soule, especially as well, because of what's going on in the main Star Wars comic right now, where he's bringing in so much High Republic stuff. It literally is like they're just like throwing alley-oops off the backboard to themselves. Like they're setting themselves up and they're just being like, yeah!
I mean, like Luke Skywalker talks to Elzar Mann in like a Force vision. Like that's freaking wild. That's freaking wild.
Also, there was to kind of date when we're recording this episode, there was a comic cover today for a future Star Wars comic where it's Luke Skywalker with the Temple Guard yellow saber, and in the background it's all Nihil helmets with storm symbols.
No.
And I'm like, Charles Soule, you're just, come on, man. What are you doing?
Charles Soule cannot be stopped. He cannot be stopped.
It's kind of like, didn't Cavan set himself up as well in like Duke of Jedi Lost?
For everything. The Bogan collection has the entire High Republic in it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Ridiculous. Like, I love the man, but like, oh my goodness.
I remember us being like, oh my God, he did it. You know, like and he
many
knew
times.
We did it.
Like,
yeah.
Who's Master Trennis? Who can say? Oh, me? I could.
But yeah, I mean, Path to Deceit, I think also what really jumps out to me is it's a dual co-written by Tessa and Justina, right? And so I haven't read it, but from what I've heard, and maybe Eric, I guess full disclosure here, I have fully read Quest for Hidden City. Eric is halfway through Path of Deceit. And Sarah is right behind us. She's right on her tails here.
As in Sarah hasn't started either of them, okay?
She's right on her tails.
Even the waist.
From what I've heard, Eric, it seems like they're like the dual point of view between Tessa and Justina blends together really well. And so I think that, I don't know if you can testify to that, but that seems like a really big standout of this book, that it's like the first co-written book of the High Republic and of Star Wars that we've gotten in quite some time.
Yeah, from my understanding, because I can't tell, like, it's not quite, this was Justina, this was Tessa. There does seem to be a tonal shift sometimes between chapters where you can kind of tell a little bit, but it goes from like character perspectives. And it's really funny going in the reading order that I had based on Star Wars Publishing, having just read Princess and the Scoundrel, which went from Han to Leia.
Right.
It's like, oh, it's a very similar vibe.
Cool.
Like it's not like this is a Marta chapter, this is a Kevmo chapter labeled, but content wise, it kind of is. Where you do shift perspectives, and it makes me wonder Hopefully, like someone's to chat to some of them soon and ask them the details, because I do wonder if one of them kind of handled one character, and one of them handled another, and then they met for beats, or if they edited each other. Because I know Kevin Scott and George Mann wrote Life Day Treasury together, and when I talked to them about it, that was we both wrote every story together. There was no division. So it does read like there's a slight division here. It's not incongruous, but I do feel like they may have taken different duties.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like for instance, I would like to be a fly on the wall at the co-writing duos of the world. Like James S.A. Corey is a co-writing duo of the Expanse series, and they talk about how they
so good
do every other chapter, and then they edit each other's chapters so that they know who started each chapter. But by the end of it, that's all they can say is like, yeah, I started that one. But like that, the hope is that it kind of moves through seamlessly. And I think I assume that's what a decent amount of co-writing duos do, is like we kind of build the story together and kind of take our own pieces and then put the pieces together.
Yeah.
No, Sarah, quick question. Have you read Honor Among Thieves, the Star Wars book?
No, I have not.
Because it's a Legends book written by James S.A. Corey.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so I haven't read The Expanse yet. I had the first book, and I've had it for it's gonna look great on my shelf for years.
Exactly.
But
it's good.
I know it's good.
You should
I
go
won't
for
get to it. But I absolutely loved it, and yeah, I couldn't tell it was seamless. But yeah, for any folks, The Expanse, there is a Han Solo heist like caper book by James S.A. Corey, and it's excellent.
If I ever get around to reading Legends, I will read it. Like, but that's a whole other adventure.
We want to so desperately. Oh my gosh, we'll get
Shadow
there.
Point sits on my shelf.
This one is right against the canon like buyout,
Totally.
so it's like tonally very similar to canon books, which is nice.
Yeah,
love that. Yeah, but yeah, no, Path of the Sea, noteworthy queer romance too, which I think which is great, right? So, somebody who doesn't believe the Jedi should have the Force, and then somebody who is a Force user. I mean, like that is just like setting up for a home run right there. And somebody named Mother, like I want to know all about. I want to know all about this.
I am
so-called
not gonna
me of the High
We get
Republic.
Mother in the book. We get Mommy in Andor. We are just feasting on both ways.
Gentlemen of the class.
Bonk, 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 bonk.
I mean, honestly, though, I'm really here for the romance, and I agree with both you guys in saying that like this feels like a smaller, more intimate story. It doesn't feel as the hyperspace disaster, which was like probably the biggest event you could possibly think of in a Star Wars, So I'll be really interested to see how this book balances that really intimate story, as we've talked about earlier in this episode, like with the world and the time that it exists in, or if this is just like a series of stories about smaller stories, just in general. I'll be curious to find out.
Yeah. Well, that leads us to our next story, which is Quest for the Hidden City by George Mann. So, Eric, kick us off.
Let's do it. So this is a middle grade novel. You should read this second from what we've been told. It starts very similarly. It is a time. Oh, wait, sorry. Centuries before the Clone Wars of the Empire, in the early days of the High Republic, it was an age of great exploration in a galaxy far, far away. Ellipses. It is a time of excitement and discovery. Daring pilots chart new routes through hyperspace, while Pathfinder teams make contact with frontier worlds to invite them to join the Republic. When a Pathfinder team's communications droid is found drifting in space, damaged, and bearing a cryptic message, Jedi Knight Salandra Sho and her Padawan Rupert Natani are sent to find the missing team members. Their investigation leads them to the planet Gloam, a ravaged world said to be haunted by mythical monsters. But the situation on Gloam, or Gloam, I think it's Gloam, is more complicated and perilous than they think. A hyperspace explorer named Spence and his son Das are also stranded on the planet, and they quickly learn that the quote-unquote mythical monsters are very real and very, very dangerous. Can the Jedi find the missing Pathfinders, save Das and Spence, and unravel the mystery of the monsters? The answer lies in a hidden city beneath the planet's surface.
I love it.
That's so fun.
That's
that
so
is
fun.
A middle grade novel written by a man who loves pulp and fun. There's a father-son duo. Like,
there's a
this kind of checks all the nice fun boxes for like I'm gonna day drink on a Saturday and read this in one sitting. Like that's kind of feels what I want to do.
21 plus to day drink on a Saturday and read this. To be clear, this is a book meant initially for 8 to 12-year-olds. Don't do that if you're 8 to 12, please.
You got plenty of time to ruin your lives when you're our age.
I have to say that I really like that this book kind of like starts out with this droid drifting in space. It gives me AP5 vibes in the best way.
Sure.
Okay, in the
we
best
love
way.
AP5.
Thank you. I love AP5. I am a fan. I know not everyone is, but he's so delightful. So I love how that's how this book kind of starts and puts us into the action. So I will be really excited to read this one because I love the middle grade novels so much, man. Like, man, everybody should be reading more middle grade. If you skip the middle grade, take a second to ask yourself if you enjoy joy. And if you do, consider reading a middle grade novel. Honestly, though,
take that second. Yeah.
Honestly, because middle grade stories are all about like how do you fit in with others and like how do you create community. That's kind of what the big idea of middle grade often is. Middle grade and YA are middle grade is like the how can I fit in, how can I find community, and then like YA is like how do I find myself. And I think that question about finding community, how do I live in this world that I'm changing in and the world is changing around me, as an idea for middle grade stories is so vitally important to all ages of people. We all need that reminder, and we often all need that perhaps more gently told every once in a while than what we get in an adult novel. So this is me on my step stool, both feet on the step stool right now, telling you to pick up a middle grade novel, whether it be Star Wars or otherwise. One of my greatest pandemic reads was a middle grade novel in verse. I know that the education director at the bookshop where I just finished up working, single tear slides down the right side of my face, is such a huge proponent of middle grade literature and recommends Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. So if you want to read a fantasy, there's one for you. But yeah, middle grade. And I am off the step stool. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for letting me step on the step stool for like a whole minute and a half.
Yeah, I echo everything you said. When it comes to these sorts of books, don't let the categorization of the reader, the intended reader, deter you from enjoying these stories and pulling lessons from them. Because as we have in like all of our discussions on middle grade, I mean, some of our middle grade discussions have been 2 hours. Like we talk about theme. Same, I'm sure, with you two at Living Force, Eric, is that you guys probably dive into these just as much.
They're so good.
As so Master Kunpar once said, my 2022 intention, part for the part, the whole for the whole, and each part for the role it pays, not for what you want it to be, not for what you hope it to be, for what it is.
When are you getting that tattooed on your body is my question.
It's kind of a long phrase to get tattooed on my body.
Celebration London, do it.
If I'm going to be there, which I'm not.
You can get it on the shoulder blades. It's fine. It'll fit up there.
Yeah, but like seriously, that is a quote that comes directly from a middle grade novel about like a kid who is dealing with anxiety. And I specifically brought it into 2022 as my 2022 intention. So there's something for readers of all ages here. Anyway, I am getting off of the step stool now. Don't let me get back on.
So I'm the one in the group that's read this book and did the homework. I say that sarcastically.
You did. Well done.
Hold on. I would like to set the record straight today in saying that I got the arc early and Brad said, "Can I borrow it and then send it back to you?" And I said, "Yes, Brad, you can do that." And then he didn't send it back to me. Okay. And then by the time that we ended up meeting up again in Hollywood, like the arc was sitting at my front porch back home. Okay? To be clear.
Anyways, it all comes out.
Anyways, exposed here at Friends of the Force. We have the receipts. So I've read this book, and my like non-spoiler review of it is a lot of fun. It is like part horror, part coming of age, like you've been talking about with the genre. Rupert Natani is a huge character in this book. She's the Padawan, like Eric read, of Salandra Show, and Salandra Show There is concept art of her on StarWars.com. She, quote, views herself as a shield against evil in the galaxy.
She has a lightsaber shield.
She's got a lightsaber
So
shield,
cool.
folks. Like, she is basically Captain
Nothing
America
cooler.
in Star Wars. She's so damn cool. Let me tell you, like, you're going to read this book and be like obsessed with this character. She's so freaking cool.
Awesome.
And I would say, like, if you're a fan of like Reith Silas and like Ram Jamaram and Lula Talisola, Rupert Natani is going to be a character that you attach yourself to very quickly.
Midnight
Awesome.
Horizon Hive is
Yeah.
rising. I love that.
This
Midnight Horizon Hive has like just been out and about all the time. They're always rising.
So good.
So right in line, it really is right in line with the rest of the middle grade characters that we've been introduced to. And like Eric talked about, mythical monsters, secrets in a hidden city. I mean, there's a lot to unpack and uncover in this book that I think will lend itself to the rest of the phase and beyond. So not one you will want to miss, and one that you can probably easily plow through in an afternoon on your porch.
Awesome.
Whether or not you are, drinking an adult beverage.
Correct.
Or can afford a
Correct.
porch. Hashtag
Or
Chicago.
can afford a porch. Oh.
But Brad, make us happy and maybe a little steamy with the final book here.
Yeah, we always end on the steamy here. Convergence by Zoraida Cordova, coming out the week of Thanksgiving. Talk about being thankful for a new Zoraida Cordova
right.
Star Wars book. Because
Goodness.
it has been 3 years since Crash of Fate. I've been waiting for this. Although Zoraida has contributed to, from a certain point of view, Empire Strikes Back. She wrote a Boba Fett story, which is also excellent.
Very iconic.
All right, so I'm going to do my Tom McCain impression now. Okay. Centuries before the Clone Wars or the Empire, the early days of the High Republic. It was an age of great exploration in a galaxy far, far away. Okay, I'm done. Never doing that again.
Amazing.
It is an age of exploration. Jedi travel the galaxy, expanding their understanding of their Force and all the worlds and beings connected in it. Meanwhile, the Republic, led by its two chancellors, works to unite worlds. And this economy, who's paying that salary? The taxpayers? Okay. Works to unite worlds in an ever-growing community among near and distant stars. On the close orbiting planets of Aram and Arono, the growing pains of a galaxy with limited resources but unlimited ambition are felt keenly. I love that. Their hatred for each other has fueled half a decade of escalating conflict and now threatens to consume surrounding systems. The last hope for peace emerges when heirs from the two planets' royal families plan to marry. Here comes Matt Smith, audiobook narrator. Before lasting peace can be established, an assassination attempt targeting the couple tilts Aram and Arono back into all-out war. To save both worlds, Jedi Knight Gela Natai volunteers to uncover the culprit, while Chancellor Kyung appoints her son Axel Greylark to represent the Republic's interest in the investigation.
His name is Axel Greylark, okay?
But Axel,
This man is involved in a romance. Sorry, go ahead. Keep going forward. I've read enough romance books in my life, okay?
But Axel's deep distrust of the Jedi sparks against Gela's faith in the Force. She's never met such a puffed-up, privileged party boy, and he's never met a more self-serious, relentless do-gooder. The more they work to untangle...
I love it!
The more they work together to untangle the shadowy web of investigation, the more complicated the conspiracy appears to be. With accusations flying and potential enemies in every shadow, the pair will have to work together to have any hope of bringing the truth to light and saving both worlds.
My goodness.
You guys.
Holy moly.
I wanna say one thing, and then I want to give Sarah this double step stooled box here.
I'm standing up,
again,
to be
it's
clear.
been over 900 days since I've been on the show, so I'm not entirely sure where I remember the language barriers be, but I'll say this, and if we have to bleep this out, you have children at home, I'm so sorry. If you see the concept art for this, Axel Greylark is the fuckboy of Star Wars. Like, he is so clearly an angular. Like, this man has climbed out so many windows at daybreak. I swear to God, and I'm so excited to see this adventure. Anyway, Sarah, you have the floor.
Oh
you are literally standing on this call.
Brad knows when I stand up, I start to yell about things. I have a real love for Zoraida Cordova. I don't know if she knows this, but it's true.
She
I love
backed
her
you.
books. I love
Send her the clips.
I love her. She's got great taste. She's delightful. She writes romance novels under a pen name. Great. No, just no notes. And I am weak for a messy, ridiculous man in the fiction. And we're getting that. It's fine with me. And I'm great. I'm doing great. I'm so excited about our Jedi. I'm so excited about this duo. I'm ready to cry about Orla and Comac Vetus. Don't get me started. Literally do not get me started. I will go on like a capital R rant about Comac Vetus and how many feelings I have about him.
Capital R rant? More like a capital R rake.
Hey, he is such a rake. Axel Greylark is a rake.
That's
Absolutely.
100%.
You can't spell
True.
Greylark without rake.
That's
You literally cannot.
That's literally
I had
true.
to think about that. I literally stopped and started like R.
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't show enough excitement for the other two books now, but like I'm actually really, really excited for both of those two. But just the way that this one is framed speaks to me. And I'm so sorry for how unsufferable I will become.
No. I will also say
that
I
is
was not
all.
the biggest fan of the Irem and Arona flashbacks in Into the Darkness. I think that I know that Claudia Gray spoke to us when we interviewed her way back when, that there were some parts of the book that she had an idea for a certain event, and then she had to go back and kind of retouch it up. We'll never quite know what that was, but I do wonder if anyway, something had to be touched up, and it seemed a little bit more incongruous to the main story for me. That being said, this because of everything Sarah you just said, and also the way this is framed, I'm excited for this story of Irem and Arona. I think I got this wrong. But to reframe the story, to reframe the flashbacks in phase 1, to like kind of give those more depth, because like, come on, 100 Years War and the heirs and assassination and we're hiding, but there's only one bed. Like, come on, we know what we're doing.
You guys, that's exactly what I want in this world.
But I'm a senator. You're a Jedi. I'm a senator.
It's giving Amidala.
We know how it goes. But also, if you're like, ooh, I would like forced, or not like forced, but like arranged political arrangement, marriage sort of fantasy, not so friends to lovers. The Hurricane Wars comes out fall 2023. If you know, you know. If you don't, now you do. And that's going to be a South Asian inspired epic fantasy trilogy by Thea, who is also better known as Disastroisms. Okay, that's it. Bye. And more recently, R.I.P. to Kylo Ren Vivo.
Wow. Well, there you go. Now you know. If you didn't know, like myself, now you know.
Now you know.
Yeah, this is exciting.
You know.
This is an exciting one. And I mean, the adult novels are also so fun. And I think it's interesting that this is the last book in the phase. We'll see how it works out. We'll see if it confuses folks. But I mean, if this has some more big events, let's do it. I'm all about it.
Yeah,
Right.
It is an interesting departure to do the adult book last, because like every phase so far has done, or every phase wave. Oh, God damn it, we're back at it again.
It's so hard.
Every wave, has had the adult book first to kind of set up the pivotal events of the wave, right? Like there's the Great Disaster, there's the Republic Fair, and then there's the Fallen Starlight Beacon, right? I will say, like, based on reading Quest for the Hidden City, I wouldn't really consider this a spoiler. And maybe Eric, you can support this as well. Aram and Arono seems to be the staple events of Phase 2, Wave 1. Would you agree with that?
They have not yet appeared for me in Path to Deceit.
Okay.
So I will say that So far, Path of Deceit is definitely more. I don't know how to say this in a weird way, but like it's more of like the vibes of the Force, and it is more about the idea of the path of the open hand and their growth and their power seems to be very much what that book is focused on thus far. Again, have not finished it. Justina Ireland especially is very famous for the last parts of her books getting very explosive. So who knows if we find our way there? But that is very Dalna and path centric thus far.
Gotcha. Read Rust in the Root by Justine Ireland.
Out now wherever books are sold.
Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Quest for the Hidden City doesn't take place on those planets, but I think it's sort of happening in the periphery. There's a sense of it happening, that this war has been ongoing, and that's sort of just the galactic scope of this time period. So I think it's going to be interesting once we get to Convergence, like what do we get, like kind of a larger look at the galaxy during this time period, because Quest is like a much more like focused story, a smaller scale story, just like all the other middle grades have, I think, with the exception of Race to Crash Point Tower, because that one was pretty directly involved with the Republic Fair compared to A Test of Courage and Mission to Disaster, which happened on the periphery. So Quest is more of a on the periphery book, and I think the Ariam and Arona War is going to be sort of the centerpiece for Wave 1 of Phase 2. Zoraida Cordova being back in Star Wars again, like I like, she was on Sarah and I's like wish list for High Republic authors, and so when it got announced, like we were screaming in Facebook Messenger at each other. We were so excited. She is a voice that is needed in Star Wars. We love romance. Elzar Mann waking up one morning for one chapter with no pants, which is also fantastic.
Which Brad will bring up at any turn.
Every single episode.
I remember it every time. So well done. So honestly written. So honestly written.
I mean, I bring it up so often because like Calvin was
really
like, I'm going to go. Calvin was like, I'm going to go there. Right. And so I'm curious as to what sort of leaps Zoraida takes in this book. Like, do we get some like,
Bix would eat,
you know,
Elzar alive. Also, as far as the people that have now canonically had sex in Star Wars.
Yeah.
I just also have to say that I've Sam Maggs has said that she has gotten an edit that her Jedi, oh gosh, Battle Scars book is too spicy.
Tom, come on, what are we doing?
Oh no, but like, okay, so we've got this moment with Elzar. I mean, Princess and Scoundrel is not like capital S spicy. You know, it's all implied, which is fine. It's a whole, it's just another side of romance.
But you know,
so is Zoraida bringing the spice? Like, where's the line these days? You know, that's what I'm really wondering. You know, where does the spicy line start and end for Star Wars?
I think the line will always be pretty implied with Star Wars.
But Elzar Mann, okay, you opened up a whole new door. Okay,
that might be the line though. I don't think we're ever gonna get like full on like. And then they took each other in the what? But I think it might be the lights. It's kind of like when you had sex in the original Fable game for the Xbox. If anyone played that, you talk to them, the lights go down, and they come up, and then you're like putting your clothes on. I think that's about where we're gonna live.
But that's recent, for Star Wars.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's all very, very curious to me. Not that I'm like hyper focused on this very one specific aspect, but I just find it interesting that like the line is being drawn and redrawn for Star Wars storytelling in different mediums, like in our present moment. And I think that is just really fascinating.
Yeah, I haven't been on that High Republic AO3 yet, but I'm sure you could find some lines that have just been abolished. So,
and that's what AO3 is for.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, I think if anything's obvious from our conversations on these three books, phase 2, wave 1, is gonna slap. It's gonna be a good time. I think we have a lot to look forward to. I want to do like a quick rapid fire for each of you. What is like just for phase 2 in its entirety, like all the titles that we talked about were alluded to. What's your heavy hitter and what's your sleeper?
I'm Sarah. I'm gonna throw it to you. I'm unprepared.
How do you mean? Like which one am I most excited for? Which one am I like, this could be really great?
Yeah,
we don't
heavy hitter. So like I'm thinking of fantasy football, right? So like your heavy hitter is like your first pick.
Yeah, that's not language I understand.
So
I do, Brad. I like it.
Heavy hitter is your first pick. Like you get the first pick of the draft. Like you get to pick the best player in the league, right? Player you're most anticipating will do a superb job. Your sleeper is like somebody that other people might not think of as a heavy hitter, but you're like, oh no, they're a sleeper, and when they wake up, they're gonna be a heavy hitter. But everybody else thinks they're just sleeping.
Unsurprisingly, it is Convergence by Zoraida Cordova, my heavy hitter. I think because we have not spent a lot of time talking about the comics on this episode, just because I think we know a lot less about them. My sleeper is The High Republic Adventures by DJO. That was a really
so good.
That so easily became one of my favorite stories in phase 1, and I didn't expect that at all, and I was really so positively delighted that it was. But my other sleeper is The Battle of Jedha by George Mann, which we haven't talked about at all here, but that's an audio drama. I think as a fandom have always had a fascination of Jedha, and I am exceptionally excited to hear more about it in an audio format, just especially considering how brilliant Tempest Runner was on the production side of things.
Hilariously, I will say my heavy hitter is the Battle of Jedha.
Oh.
I think that like everyone that watched Rogue One is like, where did these statues in the sand come from?
Right.
Like, when were these up? When were these the Lord of the Rings guys? Like, this was epic. So I think that is my heavy hitter of like that story. And I think that the format is obviously, I think, makes it a little more of a sleeper. I totally acknowledge. But I think that is going to be epic, truly, with a capital E. My sleeper is becoming less of a sleeper as the weeks go on because we're getting a little more art for it. Again, a comic. It's The Blade by Charles Soule. Porter Engle is about to be a sexy sword fighter that knows how to cook. And it's just going to be
and if that's not your ideal man, I don't know who is.
I don't even know you. But Charles Soule has always said, like, everything he talks about The Blade, he's like, Porter Engle is full stop the best swordsman to ever do it in the Jedi. Ever. Period. Yeah. So the fact that this is also as a visual medium, as a comic, we are going to see the best swordsman the Jedi have ever known artistically rendered in his prime. And I'm like, this is just going to, I think, make everyone go back to like Light of the Jedi when we first hear Portal on Elfrona and be like, this guy? Oh my God, now he's old, but when he was young, he was freaking Zorro. Like, this is going to be, I think, just absolutely epic. So those are my two.
Okay, so my heavy hitter and my sleeper are kind of a mix between the both of you. I'm going to compromise here. My heavy hitter is Convergence because, again, I can't resist forbidden romance between Jedi, Senator. It's just bred for success. Like I have no other way to.
It's always worked out well too. Clearly, that's the most important thing.
Clearly, never had any problems with that sort of romance in Star Wars. Always led to good things. And then my sleeper, like Eric, I have to agree, Eric, The Blade. I mean, everything I see about The Blade, like, I mean, from Porter Engle's lightsaber hilts, which, like you said, Zorro vibes, heavy Zorro vibes. But I think most importantly too, like finally learning about the origin of the Barash Vow, which like we've heard in the Darth Vader comics. Yeah. We know from Kristen Baver's Skywalker Family at War book, Obi-Wan takes the Barash Vow on Tatooine. We know at the end of Into the Dark, Des Ryden takes the Barash Vow.
That's right. Des Ryden. Wow, that's right.
I can't believe you pulled that name out of like the ether. I couldn't have done that.
That's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Everybody's like, oh yeah, the Barash Vow Vader comic. I'm like, this is Des Ryden erasure right now. Like, how dare you?
But here's the thing. I just don't remember details like that. Like,
well, he's such a minuscule character, and I do wonder if he'll come back into phase 3 again. If phase 2 is sort of a, hey, just here's all the info you need to succeed in phase 3. Like, will he come back into phase 3 once we have the context of the Barash Vow? But recently we learned on StarWars.com that Porter Engle's sister is actually named Barash.
Wild.
Which was big.
Wait.
Yeah.
Shit.
Oh my God, Sarah, I'm getting the moment now. I got to see you hear that. That's amazing. This does feel great.
The Blade.
I'm up to date on things. I'm not even a real fan. Like,
so like Porter and Barash, brother, sister, High Republic.
Oh.
Like it is going. I think this comic's gonna blow us out of the water. Like Charles Soule is gonna deliver. Like I'm so excited.
Okay,
and
now
it's
I'm
like
gonna go.
5-6 issues. I don't remember. Anyway,
really?
I hope so.
Somebody, I don't know who. We've got 3 people in this Google Doc. You know that we put the thing. Let's put the cover in the Google Doc.
Yeah,
it's kind of sexy.
It's really sexy, the blade. He's like,
we are looking at his back, and he's kind of got his face turned to the side, and then he's got like both hands behind his back holding his lightsaber hilts. I don't know, with the like the Nile and other bad guys in the back. Kind of sexy.
would you call that like a hand flex a little bit? It was grabbing his own little robe there.
This is okay. Actually, now the more that I zoom in, the more intense it gets. I get it, guys. I get it. But I'm certainly not going to say it.
It's giving Kylo Ren flexes his wet hand in Last Jedi vibes.
That's it. It's that mixed with McFadden and Pride and Prejudice. That's the deal.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay.
I know what to say. I know the words to say.
This is a real unhinged episode for us, you guys.
I know. Listen, if you've made it this far, you deserve it. I need you to know that I've now zoomed in 200% on this Google Doc just to kind of see the details on this one. But I also need you to know that somebody also put the Axel Greylark image into the doc and then wrote pictured : fuckboy. That was me. Guilty.
I just have to be clear about the chaos that's happening right now. We need to stop. We need to stop, like as friends. You know, I just went friend to friend. I think we need to calm down.
That's it.
Yeah.
And the episode over. And recording.
We'll stop when they do. I mean, everyone in Star Wars TV is now hot. Everyone in Star Wars books is now hot. We just haven't. This is it now. This is where we live.
Here's the thing. First of all, what did we do to deserve this? We didn't.
Nothing.
So
Absolutely
we're being
nothing.
blessed. That's very kind of everybody. Second of all, when did Star Wars get hot? Like, wow. Okay. Grateful.
Secretly,
You know,
like slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poe Dameron might actually be the resurgence of the daddy.
Oh,
and
you know
then,
what?
And then there was Pedro. And then, like, you know, it's the Latino men in Star Wars who are like bringing it back.
You're absolutely right about it being Oscar Isaac. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
There was a point in time, I was in college when these movies came out. There was a point in time where I was like, guys, we're going to cover our fridge in like the promo shots of Oscar Isaac and then Diego Luna. Because they had like really good promo shots that were also just very attractive. And we never ended up doing it, but I think about it to this day.
You're doing a weird thing where you're speaking in the past tense. I don't understand that. I don't see why this is.
To be clear, I'm not in college now. I did graduate. I did get a degree. It might be sitting under a pile of like t-shirts and books on my book cart because it happened during, you know, like March 2020, but it's fine. I did get it. I do have it. I spent a lot of money.
I'm just saying that
it.
there are probably new magnets of Diego Luna that are going to be coming out this year. So
I'm
we
ready.
can upgrade that.
My wallet's
You're
ready.
right. Okay.
Right.
Would you buy the beard or the no beard one? That's the question of the day.
I haven't seen no beard yet.
But you've seen no beard in the trailers.
It's true. I got a beard. I mean, beard. I'm usually not a beard guy if I have the choice, but
The
God,
beard?
it's so striking. It's so striking.
Yeah.
The beard.
I respect
Oscar
that.
Isaac's beard in Dune is like really supreme, though. I gotta admit, like,
Guys,
that's the
this is
best.
not. We can have
We
another.
gotta get some questions because
You know,
this is getting.
Guys, if we want to record an After Dark episode after this,
What's up, Patreon?
Oh boy.
we can just make a special Patreon episode. Yeah.
But hey, speaking of hot, we got some hot questions from some
Wow,
listeners on
incredible
Twitter.
transition. 10 out of 10.
You nailed it. Seamless.
Nailed it.
Beautiful.
First question here. We wrap up with a little bit of a quick rapid fire Q&A. First question's from Emma Park at Irma Jedi 26, who is actually your associate, Eric. She's content manager at Utini. Emma's great. Emma asks, yes, loves this team up. Here's my question. Who will be the best Jedi in Phase 2, and why is it Porter Blade of Bardotta Angle? What's his famous recipe going to be in this new phase? No way it can top the 9-egg stew, right?
9-8 stew is iconic. That's all I have to say about
That's
that.
amazing.
I don't think anything can top that. He's been perfecting that for 100 years. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, Emma, you're absolutely right. It's going to be Porter Angle, and his best recipe will be like battle rations because he's just going to be on the field slaughtering people all the time.
Ooh.
He doesn't learn to cook yet. He's just eating like crackers and dirt.
You don't think like his one single hobby is like just cooking?
I don't think he has a hobby. I think his only hobby is the blade.
You know, like, well, he might be like the blade, and then he also has a hobby, you know, like the duality of man, you know?
It's a great point. That's a great point.
Yeah. I have to agree.
He like fights some enemies, and then he goes home and like cooks a really nice meal for himself, and is like,
How he
good day.
de-stresses. He's like, it was the will of the Force. It was the will of the Force. I had to cut all of their none. It was the will of the Force. Let's cook. Let's relax. Let's ignore it.
Exactly.
Why would we go to therapy when we can cook?
Exactly. Gotta wind down after a tough day of work.
Men will literally make a 9-egg stew instead of going to therapy.
Perfect.
Oh boy.
man.
Oh god, I love this episode so
it.
much. All right,
man.
our next question here is from Skydancer at Skydancer Jedi. And they ask, who do you think the evil enemy will be for this phase? What will the Jedi's greatest challenge be? The Jedi's greatest challenge? How might phase 2 set up things for phase 1? I believe they mean phase 3. Love Eric Eilerson to the stars.
Oh, love you too. Thank you.
Yeah. Wait, also phase 1.
Also
though.
phase 1. Yeah, I guess because it's a prequel still. So that's a valid point. Yeah.
The big bat, because like Marky, I'm not. It keeps happening. The Nile. We'll go there. The Nile were like such a clear big. Like the Drengir were there, yeah, but like the Nile were like the thing. It's a great question for phase 2.
I don't think there's going to be a clear big bad.
I think the big bad will be themselves.
Exactly.
Inner turmoil about what the Force means. I think that will be. I think there will be a divide.
That speaks to me.
Yeah. I think when we look at the original question of the High Republic, which was what do the Jedi fear? This was talked heavily about in the Trail of Shadows comic. Yes. The idea that really the leveler kind of only attacks you and is only a threat if you are fearful, right? And I believe kind of the crux of the High Republic and like the thesis statement of it is like you only have to fear itself, so to speak. And so I think that. Yeah, I agree with you, Eric. Fear is going to be the enemy. Fear, it's like, how do the Jedi develop
fear
this
is the mind killer.
Yeah, you could say. And we know from the end of Midnight Horizon that Yoda makes his triumphant return with somebody, a hooded figure that we don't know about, but somehow holds the key to all of this, to the leveler, to everything, right? And so I think secrets have been buried for quite some time. So I think phase 2 will show us what secrets do get buried by the Jedi. And why are they so fearful in phase 1? To set up phase 1 as Skydancer was asking. I also noteworthy too at Celebration, we got those 2 pieces of concept art. One was the Nameless. And also the other one was also the Nameless, but they both look different. One was sort of like a blue creature, and then the other was super like a heckin' scary creature.
Be really clear.
Right? Yeah, was the mega evolution of the Nameless.
Right.
Yeah. So it's almost
Super
like it's like
scary.
the leveler before it got poisoned and after it got poisoned.
Yes.
So I my hot take is Planet X, Quest for Planet X. Planet X is the planet of the levelers that Marchion goes to in
shit.
Eye of the Storm comic.
Oh, Planet X love that.
Planet X is also going to be the planet that Vernestra Rowe has the path to that Marie Santeca gave her. In,
my
Out of the Shadows.
Shut up right now.
I'll take care.
Holy heck, I fully believe you.
Wow. I will also say, if anyone's listening and that isn't actually that you've avoided the comics for the most part, because you're like a visual story reader, that's fine. Everyone has their different thing. I had the Storm, which Brad just mentioned. The Marchion Rowe comic. It is more like a novel with a few like pictures in it. It's very word heavy. So if you're not quite a comic reader and want a little more like prose narration, I would recommend just picking up those 2 issues. You might find it more accessible, and you get a ton of info about him, including the name of his race, which shows up again in Path of Deceit. So
yeah. Also, only place you'll currently get post Fallen Star story.
Yes,
which is also wonderful. And most importantly, the only other mention of Kevin Tarr after Light of the Jedi. Listen, if Kevin Tarr doesn't come back in phase 3, I'll be so upset. That's my glove shit of the High Republic.
Kevin is so important to me.
I just love that we have like Bix and Cassian and Elzar and Avar and Marchion, and then there's like Tim. And Kevin.
Tim with 2 M's, Kevin. And also in Quest for the Hidden City, Spence.
Oh, yeah, right. The nickname for Spencer.
Spence. I love it. I love Star Wars.
Great question.
It's such a great thing.
Big fan. this is a comment from Cheryl. We have 2 more here. Cheryl, who's a patron of the show and also a friend of the Living Forest podcast.
Love you so dearly, Cheryl.
She just was
She's
like,
the best.
she just said, I love it when Eric is on Friends of the Forest. His appearance on Friends of the Forest is why I got back in the Star Wars books. I'm so happy he's back on one of your favorite pods. Can't wait to hear you all together. Just some good vibes. Thank you, Cheryl, for being a supporter of the show and for
Cheryl, we love
supporting, supporting Utini and Living Forest Pod.
Met Cheryl in line at the Falcon in Galaxy's Edge during the day before celebration started. We spotted each other after all these years, and one of the best hugs I've ever received. Love you, Cheryl.
Love that. Yeah. we watched the Andor trailer on my iPhone with Cheryl and Travis, who's another patron, on the cement floor inside in front of the Star Wars show stage, which was not premiering anything at that time for some reason.
Weird.
But we all watched it together, and that was our first
We
time.
were like, guys,
meeting.
an Andor trailer has dropped. We have to watch it. But also, we met Cheryl and Marie Claire like in the middle of Disney. We were like walking past each other, and we were like, point. Hi.
Yeah.
What a great time. What a great time.
Great time. So our last question here, and then we will close out, is from @PloCoonPoon.
Amazing.
Love that. They ask, what do you think the quote sins against the nameless end quote are that will end up requiring Jedi sacrifices? And this, speaking of Easter egg drops throughout pre-High Republic time, is this is a Master and Apprentice drop right here.
It is.
Claudia Gray's book, Master and Apprentice, it features many prophecies, one of which says, only through sacrifice of many Jedi will the Order cleanse the sin done to the nameless.
So good. There's also a weird prophecy about an egg, but we'll ignore that one for now.
The danger of the past is not the past, but sleeps in an egg.
I love how you had that pulled up. You're like, I'm ready for that one.
Oh God, the sin against the nameless. What is it?
Yeah, again, the nameless. I mean, that at this point in Star Wars, when I hear nameless, I'm like, okay, that's connected. It's all connected.
It has. I mean, Claudia Gray, one of the story architects, obviously.
Yeah.
What is the sin done against the nameless? Like,
I mean, I think it goes back to the concept art. We see 2 different forms of the leveler. Like, what do the Jedi, are the Jedi the ones that poison the leveler to become something worse than they are?
They corrupt it into a weapon by trying to. And why does the sacrifice of the Jedi have to happen in order to do? And also, it's a prophecy we read about in Master and Apprentice, which takes place centuries after the High Republic.
Yeah,
I think the sin done to the nameless comes specifically from a choice to not understand.
Yeah, sure.
And maybe them completely off. And if I am, so be it. But
No.
I we're talking about questing. We're talking about relationships. We're talking about views of the Force. We're talking about the ways in which we want the world to be. And when we encounter someone who is different from ourselves, who has a different goal and a different understanding, instead of sitting down and choosing to listen and understand, we other them. And I wonder if that's ultimately what happens to the nameless, if they are othered, or if they are a lot of talk about colonization and expansion in colonial systems in phase 1. I wonder perhaps if that comes back in a way in phase 2, sin done to the nameless, if quest for Planet X, if that is wherever the nameless began, or where they live, or where they are, and people come and invade that and take that for their own, or decide that the nameless are not enough for that place. That could be an understanding that, or misunderstanding that, or just like a deliberate power move that might cause ripple effects. I don't know. I'm making shit up, but I feel like that's kind of the crux of life, is that we choose not to understand one another. Anyway,
It's ambition, it's greed, it's all of those worst traits that divide the galaxy further. I think like in many ways we are all the Republic is maybe the root of the problem, right? Like was Planet X the event, event zero that kind of caused it all, and then did the Jedi try to cover that up?
Yeah. Well,
the
and like
question.
there's such an and we're seeing already in the promos for Path of Deceit with the Path of the Open Hand, like they see, like you were saying, Sarah, they see the Force one way, the Jedi see the Force another way. Anytime the Jedi try to expand and promote themselves, it doesn't work out, right? Like Starlight Beacon was all about pushing forward, down it comes. We go all the way back to the freaking Last Jedi. Of course we're going to go back there. Luke says, to say that if the Jedi die, the light dies is vanity. Can't you see that? The fact that the Jedi are like, we are the light of the Jedi. Excuse me. Like they are saying, we are going to go out. We are going to be the light. And we are going to go basically maybe encroach upon the nameless and enforce our view of the Force and the light upon them. And in doing so, do you turn them into the most horrific monsters, and only by them coming back to enact their vengeance upon Starlight Beacon and upon the Jedi Order? That's the path of vengeance.
Guys, can I read the definition of cataclysm for you?
Oh my gosh.
Yes, you may, Sarah. Please do.
Alrighty.
Oh my gosh. Oh my god.
Strap in. A large scale and violent event in the natural world, or a sudden violent upheaval, especially in a political or social context. Okay?
Sounds about right.
Unreal.
Sounds all right. Great question.
Clearly we have some thoughts about it.
That is actually like such an incredible question, and I think what's the most important thing to this phase, right? Like quest for the Jedi, like what is that quest? It's their quest for bringing together the Republic or knowledge or whatever, and it's going to be their downfall.
Yep.
I think wave one, maybe wave one is sort of opening Pandora's box, and then wave two is like finding out what happens when you open Pandora's box, and phase one is the repercussions of that many years later when those tools fall into the hands of the Nile. So
wave one, fuck around. Wave two, find out.
Honestly.
And then, of course, phase three is trials of the Jedi, right? So when we get back to the modern time, they are facing the repercussions of all of this.
That does not bode well, you guys. This does not bode well.
Also, maybe none of that. I think we may have just absolutely cracked it, but also maybe not.
Okay, but like really though, Trials of the Jedi does not bode well. Well. Okay, while we're here and we're speculating, what color is the logo going to be? Say it with me. 1, 2, 3. Red.
Red.
We all know that the best Star Wars is red, guys. The Clone Wars Season 7, Last Jedi, or Revenge of the Sith. Like, come on.
It's all going to be red. Watch, it's going to be like, and it's green. And we're like, what the hell? No!
Sometimes
delay it. Delay those again. Make it red.
Sometimes the trial means green for go into the trial.
No, it means red for absolutely stop. Please stop what you're doing.
Yeah. Let's find Buryaga in good health, please.
It's got to be red. The best question is, are we actually ever going to get High Republic Funko or Black Series before phase 3 ends? No, we know.
No way.
No, release the merch, please. I need the Buryaga Funko Pop.
Come on.
Boy, please. Whew. We are like at the 2-hour mark.
My God,
this was so much fun.
This is amazing, guys.
I had no fun.
No, this was a business. I swear to God, if we're wrong, I'm going to be livid.
Yeah, no, my expectations are too high now. Bound for failure and disappointment. Just kidding. But no, really, I think, and Sarah, you can add to this if you'd like. The preview episodes are okay. The preview episodes before each wave are always my favorite, because not only do we have like a new guest on to get their perspective and to speculate and talk about what's interesting and exciting, but it gets us in like that mindset for the High Republic, when so many other things are going on, like Andor's happening. But now I'm like, after 2 hours, like, okay, I'm ready. Let's do it. Let's read Path of Deceit tomorrow. Like, I'm so excited. How are you feeling?
I'm just wondering why we don't talk with Eric all the time about the High Republic.
About to change.
You know what? It's
We have
because
our lives.
I'm just really bad at like actually talking to people on this app. I love so
hard.
many. I love so many people. Like genuinely, like I just have so much admiration and respect for them. And like whenever we talk, we get along swimmingly. And then I just like never text them again. And I'm
Garbage.
so sorry that I never text you, Eric. So
No, we broke the seal. That's how it works.
I hope
900 days. We're at the Andor premiere. Now that it's here, it's all I want.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we did talk off air a little before this about this phase and how it's been weird that there hasn't been as much promotion and that we're all Andor crazed. But Brad, I'm the same way. Now after these 2 hours, I'm like, I'm gonna read it a bit before I go to bed. I'm just now more psyched to be in that world again and discover things and just live in this. And it's just so exciting that, I mean, to go on even a larger scale, we are getting the High Republic, Andor, Rings of Power, and House of the Dragon all at the same time. And it is just a great, and pumpkin spice lattes are back. Like, it is just a great time of year to exist.
Yeah.
And I'm stoked about it.
Also, fall book release season is crazy.
Oh, it's going. Yo,
Dude.
I got my Tracy Dion pre-ordered. I got my Chuck Wendig pre-ordered.
Oh,
I'm like, I just got Babel. Like, I'm ready.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting a copy of Tread of Angels by Rebecca Roanhorse from a Goodreads giveaway, and I almost cried last night over that.
I'm so
that comes
glad
out
that
in
you
November.
won that. I don't think people actually won those. I thought they were a myth.
No, they're real.
So
I've won one before in the past, but like it's I enter a lot of them. But
amazing.
Like, oh my gosh, there's so many great things happening this season. I just feel very, very capitally blessed. And you're right, Eric, like this excitement of discovery after having this conversation. There's not that there's nothing to discover with Andor, because there is, because like even though we know the outline of it, you know, there's a lot to like dive into, because like who knew Cyril Karn was going to be like the scene stealer in the first 3 episodes? He's just like fascinating to watch, right? Who knew? But like the discovery of the High Republic is probably the most thrilling piece of it. That we're getting to kind of dive into this entirely new world. And now we're going even further back in time. So there's going to be even more that's new and that doesn't feel exactly the same as phase 1. And so I'm really excited about that. And I'm so glad we've gotten the opportunity today to just like really get energized about it, because we have so many great storytellers who are bringing us these stories and who are sharing their vision with us within this world. And I can't wait to see what we discover in these books. I feel like there's going to be some delicious material.
Can be the best.
Oh gosh, I cannot wait. I'm so excited for everybody listening to this to start reading Path of Deceit next week, and then Quest for the Hidden City again November 1st, Convergence November 22nd, and then so many other books coming in the pipe for 2023. Before we all meet at Celebration again and talk about Phase 3, Trials of the Jedi. So it's going to be a long phase. It's going to be a phase of uncovering knowledge and figuring out what the heck our heroes got to do to win. Or maybe not win. Who knows? Because the
maybe not
Revenge of the
win.
Sith. Yeah. How does it all culminate with the Acolyte is the question.
I'm scared.
I think it's a little bit ironic that the Jedi are like, hey guys, we beat the Drengir and the Nile and the Levelers, great, and the Sith are like, ha, 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 bitch, you thought. So that's
asleep.
That's the story. Yeah,
I'm concerned. I'm concerned.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. But hey, we made it. So happy! Another preview for the High Republic in the books. Thank you so much, Eric, for joining us on this adventure here. For the last few hours. Where can our listeners find you online? And like, what do you got coming up on Utini, Living Forest, etc.?
Yeah. So you can find me most directly on Twitter at Eric Eilerson. My name is full of E's and there's no O's. I'm at utini.com and Living Forest Podcast. Every Monday night we do a live YouTube show. It's on all your podcatchers, on our YouTube channel, on the Utini YouTube. Coming up, we are, let's see, we're chatting Princess and the Scoundrel. We got just book related shows all the time. We're going to be talking about Andor every weekend. And at the end of the year, we'll have our Utinis, which is our award show, where we have the fan vote and on their favorite things of all the year. And we get all dressed up in suits and ignore our families on Christmas vacation. So it's a great time. And mostly though, you'll see me on Twitter yelling about the High Republic, and frankly, just a lot of NFL football. I'm in my red zone era right now. That's me for the next 6 months. And if you like that, come on over and see why I didn't win in fantasy every week.
Yeah, and I will say, if you are a listener of Friends of the Forest, but you don't listen to the book conversations over on the Living Forest podcast, do that, because they talk just as long about books as we do. So
we just all love books. They're so,
they're so good. They're so good. How could we not? How could we not? So if you're like, wow, I listened to 2 hours of conversation and I haven't jumped over and listened to the Living Forest's 2 hours of conversation, do that. Give yourself 4 hours of conversation. Treat yourself.
Treat yourself. That's all we're trying to do.
Truly.
That's all we're trying to do.
Yes, amazing. Well, thank you again for joining us. I can't believe it's been almost 1,000 days.
Not again. On the podcast. Not again, I say.
Never again.
Never again.
I don't know how that happened.
Feel free to, honestly, here, I'm going to say this on air. Feel free to invite yourself on the podcast, because sometimes we just don't reach out to people.
Done. Yes.
Hey guys, I want to come on. And we'll be like, oh, all right.
It's that Midwest thing of if you want to. I'm like, no. Hey guys, you read that?
Let's
go Blade. Can you believe that Porter Engle was fully nude? Let's chat about it. I don't know. Charles Soule really went off, didn't he?
Buck ass naked making his 9 egg stew. It's just the way he likes it.
I'm literally not commenting about that.
Well, if you want to follow more here at Friends of the Force, including our DIY 9 egg stew, which will never be released to the public, you can follow us on all of our socials, including Sarah and I at those same places: Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, you name it. And if you enjoyed this episode and you want to stick around for more High Republic coverage, including spoiler deep dives in the coming months, as well as author interviews, etc., subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen. Drop a review if you'd be so kind. Helps other folks find the show and join the Star Wars book community in podcast form, because there are many of us. We love books.
We are mighty. We are mighty.
Yeah.
We also have a Patreon. We're tier started just $1, and we are endlessly grateful for all of our patrons. So thank you to Amy, Brian with an I, Brian with a Y, Cheryl, Clay, Danny, Davis, Dylan, Donnie, Huang, Jen, Knights of Ren, Leanne, Levi, Lucy, Lindsay, Luke, Rob, Randy, Saber Bouquet, Sky Talker, Steven, Travis, Tom, and T. That wasn't entirely in alphabetical order, but I did my best. Thank you all very much.
Yes. Thank you all for listening. Eric, thank you for joining us on the show on day 939. Next time it will be much fewer than that. And we cannot wait for the High Republic Phase 2, folks. It's just a week away. And until then, may the Force be with you always.
Bye!
Bye!